You really need to talk to the folks here at Next Level. I've got to tell you, just speaking to the people here, they are fired up, they get it, they've got the right balance, and they're all increasing their income, they're increasing their production.
But you're dealing with people that are in the trenches dealing with this, are practitioners, had failures, had successes, learned from it, and it's about helping you not just like get through the next month, but it's about creating legacy business for yourself.
But I can tell you that you are mission focused. I know you're purpose focused, and I can tell you that every loan officer that I've communicated with that's been part of your platform has been a raving fan.
This is the Next Level Loan Officers Podcast, a proud founding member of the Real Disrupt Podcast Collaborative. You can check out more awesome podcasts at realdisrupt.com. And now, Kenneth Travis and Sean Zalmanoff.
All right, welcome everyone to the Next Level Loan Officers Podcast, the #1 most downloaded loan officer podcast in the U.S. And Shane, it's no coincidence that the podcasts that you and I do are chart toppers, my friend. I mean, absolutely chart toppers.
I mean, you know, you and I are both really humble guys, but you're not wrong. They are the best.
They are, absolutely. And let me tell you something. Today will absolutely be no exception to that. I know we've got a great guest in store for our listeners today. But real quick, I want to just talk to the loan officers who are out there listening to this podcast. Listen, if you're not familiar with Next Level, we would love to show you around, kind of tell you a little bit more about who we are. And here's the great deal, gang. You can join Next Level Loan Officers for $197 a month. It's a cheap date. It's an awesome network, and we're a good time. We love to have fun.
Cheap date, but it's a high quality date. All right.
It is a high quality. I don't mean cheap. It's cheap in the dollars.
Yeah.
But let me tell you something. The network and the people that you will meet and come in contact with and rub shoulders with, I'm telling you, are second to none. And in fact, we're excited to have one of them as our guest today. So Shane, take it away. Tell us a little bit about what we got going on the podcast today.
Yeah. You know, when you are a new growing originator, one of the biggest question marks you always have is, what do the agents think about me? You know, if I could just pick the brain of a real estate agent without getting exposed as somebody who doesn't know what they do, or you say to yourself, man, I would really love to leverage more relationships with realtors. And so we always are looking at the agent from, you know, the perspective of, you know, they may not be our partners. Sometimes it's almost like an enemy that you're trying to figure out how to master that relationship. And we have somebody who has got a very unique experience here today. So Francie is not only a real estate agent, designated broker, been extremely successful in the Denver market. She also just so happens to be married to a lender, a highly successful lender who will tell you all that, you know, he hasn't always been where he is today. And so I think what I'm excited about today to hear from Francie is just a little bit more about the perspective of an agent outside looking into lending, and now inside looking out, you know, from the other side, you know, and being able to say, hey, you know, I have seen both sides of this, and you can give us some really good insight into how as a lender to connect with agents, how to find the right people, how to target, how to maintain and foster great relationships. So Francie Martinez, thank you so much for being on.
Sure. Thanks for having me. This is exciting, and I do feel like it's a little bit of a different perspective having lived fully in the realtor world, and now it's kind of a I live in the realtor world, but I have a lot of insight into the lending world, and that's been a huge benefit to my business. So I'd love to share how it can help other people.
So if you would give us and I always like to say the back of your baseball card, just give us a little bit more about how you got here today.
Okay. So I am a math teacher by trade. And then I was a stay-at-home mom. And when my youngest was going to kindergarten, my kid's dad said to me, you should try real estate. And I said, I'm not going to do real estate. I'm a teacher. And he said, well, just do it for our purposes. So when we invest, we can use it that way. And I was like, okay. And I said, if I go to school and I don't like it, I'm not going to do anything else with it. And if you've ever been to real estate classes, they're so boring. They teach you nothing about actual day-to-day life of a realtor. But I loved it. And I was so excited about it. And literally just hit the ground running, had a great managing broker off the bat who believed in me. And, just, I had a great sphere. I had people who believed in me, and I was kind of so jazzed about it that I was doing well before I even really thought about it. And that just was honestly belief and circumstance. It wasn't, I'm sure I wasn't the best at the time. I asked lots of questions. But the interesting part about that was 2006.
Wow.
So, I was like, oh, I love this. This is my career. I'm so excited. And then 2007, 2008, 2009 hit. And for those of us who were in any part of the industry at that time, you had to be good at what you did. There was no way around it. That was just a tough time. And I did. I honed my skills. I learned. I fought for everything. Did a lot of REO, sold for a bank, all of that stuff. And I think what I learned through those really tough years was there is always going to be real estate sold. Yeah. Always. It just happens. And the more, as in anything else, the more well-versed you are, the more confident you are, the longer you stay in the game. And quite frankly, the easier it is to stay in the game because you're not second guessing and changing everything. So I would consider myself a pretty old school realtor still. And that has been a real eye-opening experience moving into the lending world now. So bought and sold for about 13 years, then was a managing broker for a big box company for about 4.5 years. And during that time, I met my husband. And we kept saying to each other, why are we not combining forces? Why are we not using both of our expertise? So I quit being a managing broker and we did join forces. And that's been probably the biggest jumpstart in either one of our businesses. So I guess that's kind of the baseball card.
I love that, you said you kind of fell forward, right? Because that's really what it is. And I think that's one of the biggest problems a lot of originators have is they don't go all in on themselves. And we have found, and I've personally found, similar to you guys, similar to your husband, when I bet on myself and I did what was required, I did the work, I was honest about my weaknesses in my business, I audited myself. That's when I had the most success. That was like my springboard, right? So talk about that decision, because you didn't just say, you were board of directors for your local realtor board, managing broker, very successful. You've gotten back into real estate now. And like we were just chatting the other day, and it's like the deals start just coming in and you're not even doing anything because you have that background. So you have massive success on your own. And then you in some ways kind of in a lot of ways, I think took a step back from your personal growth to help your husband and the team grow. Talk about that evolution from boss to like support staff member in a lot of ways on the front end at your, with your husband's company now, and kind of that transition.
So, I think as with everything, I've probably learned the most about myself during that transition. We all like to say it's not about my ego, it's not about me. But I'll tell you what, when you go from someone basically you direct, right? All as a managing broker, it was like, okay, here's our sales meeting, get my slides ready, and then it's like somebody else is saying to you, can you please order the note cards? I was like, well, yeah, but so it took a little bit of really getting clear on what our goal was, and knowing that sort of support position wouldn't be permanent for me, but that's what our business needed. Yeah. And if you're serious about building a business, you do what's needed at the time, and then you find people who are where you want to be and are willing to help you get there. And truly, we both say Next Level was probably, we did the work, but it was probably one of the biggest things that moved us forward, because we did next level together from the very beginning. And thank you guys for welcoming me. I was the outsider. I'm the realtor, right?
Well, listen,
Wow.
if you've ever been to a next level event, you'll know we rag on realtors.
We
a little
do all the time.
But Francie, you stood the test and you took it. Yeah.
Well, to
Julie
be
and
fair,
I,
she
right?
didn't tell
Julie
us she was
Wyrick and
an
I.
agent. We didn't even know she was like the spy in the room. And I'm
That's
up there.
right.
I think I'm up front making fun of agents. And then she raised, and of course, she's sitting next to her husband, who's about 260, like muscles the size of my thighs. And I'm like,
Yeah.
why wouldn't you guys tell me about this before I go up on stage? It totally set me up. But he's a teddy bear. So Mac and Francie are just amazing friends and leaders in next level. So you had a conversation with your husband and you said, we're going to do this. And you got really clear on what you wanted. Talk about like the process of kind of breaking down and dissecting the business and building it back up. Just very briefly, like, what did you do? Did you guys go away? Did you lock yourselves in a room? How did that happen?
Kind of all of that. So our original plan was I would quit my managing broker position. We were getting married about 6 weeks after that. And so we were like, I won't do anything for 6 weeks. I'll just plan the wedding, do Christmas, all of that stuff. And then the position actually came open at his company. And so we were like, well, I guess I should apply for it. So we were a little bit thrown into it that way. But I will say we kind of floated until the wedding. And then once we got back from the wedding, we had been to next level. We were getting ready to go to our second next level event. And we did spend a weekend just breaking it down. Like, how do we build the online piece? We actually broke it into the pillars you guys talk about. We did that at that time. And then it was kind of defining the roles. And of course, Mac's role was already much more defined than mine was. So for a little while, it was kind of like Mac's role, his loan partner, and I just did everything else that we needed to do. And that was okay. And I learned a ton and I became much more efficient at stuff that I wouldn't have been. The other thing it really helped me understand was the timeline for realtors and lenders, and they don't match. So when lenders are reaching out to realtors, that's when realtors are out prospecting for business. They're trying to get their clients under contract. They're trying to get listings. Well, once they're under contract and they have time, a little more time to spend, that's when the lender is processing the file and trying to get the thing closed. So that was so eye-opening for me that, you know, we're saying we're offering you all this great stuff. And the realtor's like, I'm sorry, there's 2 houses on the market and I got to go show property.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then once we get under contract, we're like, call us every day and tell us how it is. And the lender's like, I'm trying to put the file to, you know, so that was really a great realization for me in that process. And then secondarily to that was, like I said, I was a little bit old school in my thinking as a realtor. So I had the same lender for 12 years. The only other lender I ever used was if they had someone when they came to me. And he never gave me a lead. He didn't hold events. He was just a really good lender. And by the time we had done 6 or 10 deals together, I knew how he worked. He knew how I worked. It was easy. And especially and I say a changing market, it's always changing, but in these kind of wild markets that the realtors are dealing with, they want value, but a lot of the value is in assurance and ease of process.
Yeah.
Just knowing that, you know what, when my loan goes to Dwell, I know who runs that company and I know it's going to get done and I know my client's going to get taken care of. And then after that transaction, we can do all the fun stuff. But I think sometimes we both as realtors and as lenders work so hard to try and prove ourselves. And realtors are a quirky bunch. I'm one of them, but we're simple. We just want it to be easy, and we want each person in the transaction to do their job.
So that's great insight. And I love this. And I think the loan officers who are listening to this podcast, for them, this is a conversation that I don't think they hear every day, right? It's a unique perspective. And being honest, the way you just phrased that about the time schedules, I'd never thought of that before. So I think that's fantastic. Yeah. So that's great. So for those loan officers, and you have a unique perspective, obviously having been on both sides of the fence. So for the loan officers who are listening, if you could really give them maybe one nugget and just say, hey, listen, if you're going out there and because as we're recording this, we're watching rates dramatically rise. And so, whether or not it's permanent or not, the market is shifting and the purchase business is crazy, and it's going to be for a while. So, if you're trying to get in touch with that new realtor, you're trying to attract new referral partners, what have you seen, or in your experience, what works the best for a loan officer to do to go build some of those new relationships?
So I would say get really clear on who you want to work with. It's really always exciting to say, I'm going to land that whale. That whale has had those systems in place forever. And I say this all the time, probably the only faction of people that might be slower changing in an industry than lenders are realtors. Mm-hmm. So if it's working, they don't want the change. And with the whale, you're going to get the deal that someone else couldn't get closed. That's going to be your shot, period, the end. That's when you'll get your shot. And if that's what you want, that's a great place to be. That's a slow churn, and that's a lot of effort on the loan officer's part, I believe. So I think get really clear, like new agents, as unsure as you are of their success, they are hungry. And if you can, like I said, ease their pain, they don't understand lending. They don't have time to completely understand it.
Yeah. They're trying to still understand real estate.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of times they're not a part of a brokerage that is offering them a lot of support.
Yeah.
So I think, if you really want to handhold, you can build some awesome relationships with new realtors. I think a faction of the market that really gets missed is that mid-tier agent. So, I know you guys as lenders have to do more deals to make the same amount of money than we do, right? But, so we look at things and we say, oh, that agent only closed 14 deals in 12 months. Well, in a lot of markets, in my market, that's a really good income. In Shane's market, that's a great income, right? So I think sometimes not looking so closely at the numbers, but looking like if you're huge into social media and that agent is huge into social media, maybe that's a good fit for you. So really figure out who you want to work with. Because I think as both an agent and a lender, it's so frustrating when both of you put all this time into like building what's going to be this great relationship. And then you realize you just don't even work the same.
So Francie, let me ask you this. If I'm a lender in your market, mm-hmm. What's one thing I could do to get your attention as a realtor?
To get my attention?
Yeah. Like what would make a lender stand out? Because, a successful agent like yourself or any that are in the market, they've got lenders knocking on their door all the time. So
all the time.
What's a differentiator?
I think that for me personally, the thing that would work is if you had a client, and I'm not saying a lead, maybe it's a mutual client of ours, and I saw that client was educated in how lending is going to work in an environment where they're competing with 15 other people on a property. Like I say this too, like a lot of our buyers now are using less down payment because they have these huge appraisal gaps they have to cover with cash.
Right.
Well, so if a buyer already understands that before I talk to them about appraisal gap, it's huge, right? So I think the education piece up front. And the other thing for me is I'll just be blunt. Like, just don't be cheesy and in my face, which is so funny if you know my husband, because he's so out there and he's, all of that. But
Hey, I'll tell you, it worked once because he landed a whale. He landed a Francie, right?
Right. That's right.
So, but yeah, it's, and that's what I mean. Really understand who you want to work with. If you are the lender that's going to show up, in a Range Rover with watches and all of that, then find realtors who are going to roll that way. And they're not hard to find. We're all out there. There's tons of us. And then I think the other thing is, be genuine. If you are that flashy guy, be that flashy guy. If you are the guy who, isn't, or the girl who isn't like that, like, I love Ashley Corville's stuff. Did I say her last name correctly?
Mhm.
Yep.
Like, she just is who she is. And that's what we want, because then we know what to expect, right?
Yeah.
And vice versa. You just want us to be who we are too.
That's it. And we talk about that so much. If you've been to any of our events, you've heard us, really talk about knowing your ideal customer, right? And that ideal customer is not only the borrower, the actual customer to the loan officer, but it applies directly to the referral partner. The realtor, in a lot of cases, is our customer, right? And so, we talk about knowing who you are in this business, knowing who your ideal customer is, and then going after and finding those people. For us, and when we talk to our coaching clients, a lot of times, they'll say, well, I don't know where to start. And I go, okay, well, write out who that ideal customer is. What's your company good at? For me, for my business, we're great with first-time home buyers, FHA loans, less than perfect credit, maybe less than less money down, right? Like, we're really good at that. My team understands that bar. What we're not good at is what Shane's good at: high end, high net worth, jumbo loans, white collar borrower that wants to look at 20 different scenarios and 6 different rates and buy down options. That's not who my team is. So I look in neighborhoods that we do a lot of business in. I look, what are the agents that are listing properties in that neighborhood, right? Who's selling in that neighborhood? Because they're going after their ideal client. So I love that. I think what you said is exactly what we talk about a lot of times, is you've got to have that correct marriage. I often tell folks, listen, my zip code that my office is in butts up next to one of the most highest per capita income zip codes in the state of Texas, and we do 0 loans there. 0. It's not our customer. Never has been. Won't. I don't think it will be. I have a lot of great competitors and good friends of mine who are at banks, and they do great in that market because that's what they do, and they don't want my 3.5%, 620 FHA deal. So it works out well. But I think that's great. I really appreciate you sharing it. I think for the loan officers who are listening, that's a great information.
Well, and I think also, sorry, Shane, I think when you think about that, just like when you, as a realtor, you work with clients sometimes and you get down the road and you're like, you know what, this just isn't a good fit.
Yeah.
Right. Not being afraid to say, if you run across that realtor saying, hey, we're not really jiving, but do you know someone that would love to work with me? Like, be a little self-deprecating. It's okay. It's okay to ask for business. We all need it and want it. And so, I think, and then I think once you have a couple of those experiences, building your team in a way that starts to serve, like maybe Kellen, there's someone on your team who can deal with someone that you don't jive with.
Sure.
So I think, that's a down the road piece, but I don't think looking at someone that you aren't totally comfortable working with, to me, that's not a loss. That's an opportunity.
Absolutely.
So.
I think that what you guys both touched on is so important. A couple things: know when to hold them, know when to fold them. If it's not working, don't force it. Be yourself. It's so much easier to pursue people when you're being yourself, right? When you're not trying to posture and be something that you're not, because you think the market needs you to be the guy in a suit and tie when you're plaid shirt and a hat on backwards. Just be yourself and just be the best version of yourself. I think secondly, be an educator, not an order taker. We're moving into, and we've been talking about this for a while here. We're moving into a heavy purchase market. We're moving away from refinances, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, 6 days, it's irrelevant. We've got to be educators. And we've talked about this with CMA and other programs that help educate you. I think to your point, it's educating the consumer so that they become a good client. People come into buying a home with zero clue what to do. You know, I'm going through the commercial process right now to buy a building.
I've done that twice.
And it is completely, I mean, I've been in the residential lending world for 10 years, bought and sold numerous homes. I have no clue what I'm doing.
Night and day.
And like, I keep telling my agent, I need to be educated. I don't know what these forms are. What is this appraisal for? What is the survey? I have no clue what I'm doing. So I start to lose confidence when I'm not educated. That is no different than our clients. And then the agents that are good, they observe that and they see what you're doing. So one of the things I'm thinking of as you guys are chatting is, why not build an educational platform for your clients and then share that with the agent as a value add that you do? Because you've got to have a differentiator. If all you do is talk about the different loan products you have and you're willing to, you know, cover half of their marketing spend on a different platform, you're just like every other guy or gal, right? Like if I'm going to a dance and I'm trying to get that pretty gal, and I walk up with the same corsage that every other guy has, wearing the same tux, I'm just one of the guys. So I think that it's really important to be unique, be yourself, have a differentiator. You and Mac have a differentiator. The things you're doing with Game Changers, your brand that you've built, like you're living into all those things. I think that I'd like to end with like knowing what you know now. Looking back on the Francie of a year ago, and really the team, the Mac and Francie show, and really it's the Francie and Mac show, if we're being honest. Knowing what you know now, looking back 12 months, because you guys went from really no clue other than you were going to do it together, but really no clue what you were going to do, 12 to 24 months ago. And, Mac, even before that, had been at a company that just was not an ideal fit. I mean, almost went completely under, right? Go, and it's not like Mac's been in the business for a year. This guy's a 20-year vet, been through a lot of markets. Knowing what you know now, what would you tell that Mac and Francie of 24 months ago, 18 months ago? What would you tell them so that they could be where you are 6 months, 12 months sooner?
Probably two things. One, don't shut down any income streams. We sort of said, me personally, I wasn't going to sell. I wasn't going to take referrals. I wasn't going to do any of that. And so we went about 12 months with an income stream that could have really helped our business. And so that would be number one. Number two would be don't be afraid of failing. I mean, I say this all the time to you guys because you're much younger than we are, but like we've already made the mistakes. Like we know that stuff is going to happen, yet we were still trying to be so perfect about it. And there's just no way to do that in anything, really. And then lastly, I would say, don't be afraid to hire help.
Love it. The ready, fire, aim approach actually has a lot of merit in what we do, doesn't it?
Sometimes it does. Yeah. And I think especially when you are growing and Mac is great at this. We're both risk takers, but he's much more, I'm more risk averse than he is. But, you guys know, it's like, if you say, try this, he's like, okay. And I'm like, well, what about, and he's like, no, we'll just try it. And that really has propelled our business. There's a lot of stuff we would not have tried had we analyzed it more.
That imperfect action beats no action every day.
Every day of the week.
Yeah. Well, Francie, thank you so much. We appreciate you, and we're so happy to have you on the show today. And if you're in the Denver market and you need an amazing realtor, hit her up, Francie Martinez. She'd be happy. You want to give out an email address, Francie, in case anybody needs a contact?
Sure. It's just francie.martinez23@gmail.com.
There you go.
23 for Michael Jordan.
Now, listen, if you're a loan officer, she's married to a loan officer.
Yeah,
so
you ain't getting in that door, guys.
Don't go after her for that. But if you need a great realtor or referral partner or anything like that, she would be an awesome one to connect with. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Francie.
Absolutely.
Loan officers,
you guys.
Yes, thank you. Loan officers, thank you so much for listening to us today. Again, check us out, nextlevelloanofficers.com, and we will see you guys on the next podcast. Thanks, Shane.